The movie commences with the introduction of a young boy named Martin, who is embarking on a journey with a man referred to as Mr. As they travel together, Martin begins to narrate his story. He reveals that Mr. is an unwavering vampire hunter amid a rampant vampire pandemic sweeping across America. The outbreak has transformed countless individuals into bloodthirsty vampires. Martin used to be an ordinary teenager living with his family until the vampire epidemic changed everything. As they were preparing to flee their home in search of a safer place, their dog escaped from the garage. While Martin went in search of the dog, a vampire sneaked into their house and attacked his mother. Martin desperately tried to rush back and help, but Mr. tackled him, informing him that there was nothing he could do. Upon entering the garage, Martin discovered that his mother had already perished, while his father was severely injured. Suddenly, the vampire emerged, resembling a zombie, and pursued them. In a swift act of defense, Mr. drove a stake through the vampire's neck. However, the vampire managed to remove the stake, prompting Mr. to forcefully insert a shovel into its mouth. Despite their efforts to immobilize the creature in the car's trunk, it displayed an unexpected surge of strength and broke free. Martin shot the vampire, and Mr. swiftly restrained it, delivering a final blow by stabbing it in the chest with a stake. Following the vampire's demise, Martin's father pleaded with Mr. to save his son. To prevent Martin from turning into a vampire, Mr. reluctantly decapitated his father with a machete. With both of his parents gone, Martin had no choice but to accompany Mr. on their perilous journey. During their travels, Mr. trained Martin in the art of vampire combat. They avoided cities, which had become death traps due to the severe vampire infestation. As Martin and Mr. continue their journey, they encounter a vampire that has been burnt by the sun. Upon examining its fangs, Mr. identifies it as a berserker, one of the oldest and most formidable vampires. He explains that traditional methods of killing vampires, such as driving a stake through the chest, would prove ineffective against this ancient creature due to its iron-like breastbone. The only way to kill it is by stabbing it in the base of the skull. They eventually stumble upon a town under lockdown, guarded by men who only grant them entry after Mr. presents the fangs he has collected from the vampires he has killed. While restocking their supplies at the town's grocery store, the clerk inquires about their destination. Martin informs him that they are heading north in search of New Eden, as Mr. believes the region's smaller population will result in fewer vampires. The clerk reveals that someone had visited the town and warned them that New Eden lacks food, but they should be cautious of cannibals instead of vampires. Leaving the town behind, Martin and Mr. encounter two young men attempting to assault a nun. Mr. intervenes, swiftly dispatching the attackers by throwing a wooden stake into one man's back and slashing the other man's throat. The nun, known simply as Sister, explains that she believed her assailants wouldn't harm her because they claimed to be Christians. The trio seeks refuge in an abandoned motel where they set traps to catch vampires. One night, Mr. hears a vampire approaching the motel, prompting him and Martin to lure it into one of their traps. As the vampire becomes ensnared in a bear trap, Sister awakens from its growls. Recognizing the vampire as one of the nuns from their convent, Mr. clarifies that the vampire is no longer the person she once was. Martin and Mr. venture outside and take turns stabbing the vampire. Despite their efforts, the vampire manages to break free from Mr.'s grip. Martin stabs it in the chest, but the creature persists. Mr. strikes the vampire's head with a rock, pointing out that Martin missed its heart. As the vampire crawls toward the motel, Mr. seizes the opportunity, finally killing it. In the morning, Mr. respectfully buried the dead vampire for Sister's sake and planned to leave her in the next town. However, she continued traveling with them. They later discovered a town where people had seemingly died from poison during a religious gathering. Investigating a tent filled with lifeless bodies, they heard a recording of an infant crying. The townspeople, pretending to be dead, ambushed them, capturing and hanging Mr. from a tree. The leader, Jebediah Lovin, revealed his connection to Sister's assailants, blaming Mr. for his son's death and believing vampires served God's will. The cult abandoned the trio in a valley teeming with vampires, leaving Mr. bound found. He managed to break free using a vampire's teeth and fought off the creatures with a torch. The next day, Jebediah sent Martin to fetch water, warning him against escape due to the surrounding vampires. Sister signaled Martin to flee if necessary. Martin crafted a wooden stake and returned to the valley, finding Mr. gone and making his way to their car. At night, he reached the vehicle, only to find it locked. A vampire approached, but Mr. emerged from the trunk, pulling Martin inside. They distracted the vampire and Mr. ran it over, finally ramming it into a tree to escape. The following day, Jebediah's cult, known as the Brotherhood, broadcasts a message urging their followers to locate Mr. and Martin and bring them back to their town. To evade the Brotherhood's pursuit, the duo spends the night at a roadhouse bar, strategizing on how to avoid detection. While Mr. gathers information from the bartender about the next town, Martin becomes captivated by the bar singer. In the morning, Martin spots the singer hitchhiking and convinces Mr. to let her join their group. Martin learns that her name is Belle and she is pregnant. She left her job at the roadhouse to reach New Eden before giving birth. As they continue their journey, the trio takes a break at an empty house to rest. They resume their journey northward, only to learn that the Brotherhood has established checkpoints to find Mr. The group witnesses the cult members executing a man who tried to bypass a checkpoint. While hunting vampires one night, the group encounters Willie, who is breaking out of a portable toilet. They assist him back to their car, where Willie reveals that the Brotherhood abandoned him there as bait for the vampires. He discloses that he was a Marine called back from the Middle East when the vampire epidemic erupted. That night, the group ambushes Jebediah at a checkpoint, forcing him to surrender. They allow 2 of his men to escape, but they tie Jebediah to a tree, leaving him wounded and exposed to attract vampires. Continuing their journey, the group ventures higher into the mountains, where they no longer encounter vampires. Eventually, they reach a town protected by a volunteer militia group. At the border, they must surrender their weapons, but Officer Harley assures them that they will be returned upon leaving the town. During the town's festivities, Martin spots Sister in the crowd while dancing with Belle. Overjoyed, he rushes to embrace her, realizing that she has safely escaped the Brotherhood. However, the celebration abruptly turns into chaos when helicopters drop vampires into the town. The residents scramble for safety as the militia members attempt to eliminate the vampires. Martin and his companions seek refuge in a building until daylight. In the morning, they learn that the vampire attack claimed 10 lives. Officer Harley requests Mr. and his group to stay and assist, but Mr. insists that they must continue their journey. Sister decides to rejoin the group in their quest for New Eden. Although Martin acknowledges that the destination remains uncertain, he believes it holds a better future than what they left behind. Mr.'s car eventually breaks down, forcing the group to proceed on foot. After a week of traveling through the woods, Martin observes subtle changes in the group dynamics. They no longer engage in casual conversation and have begun functioning as a cohesive unit. Martin no longer dwells on his past family as he has found a new one. The group finds refuge in an abandoned auto junkyard where they set up warning systems using cans tied with strings to alert them of approaching vampires during the day. One night, they are abruptly awakened by the rattling of cans. They spot several vampires surrounding the junkyard. One vampire emerges from a car and targets Belle, prompting her to fire her revolver. Despite multiple shots, the vampire survives, leading Mr. to impale it in the skull. Mr. instructs the group to flee while he uses a flare to repel the vampires. The group seeks refuge in a cornfield, but Sister, exhausted from running, decides to sacrifice herself to buy time for the others to escape. She manages to shoot one vampire before taking her own life to prevent capture. Martin waits for Sister in the morning, but Belle informs him that she doesn't believe Sister will return. The surviving members of the group take shelter in a dilapidated bus on the road. One night, Willie goes outside the bus to relieve himself, but never returns. When they search for him the next morning, they discover a part of Willie's blanket in the woods. As they continue the search, Willie's lifeless body drops from a tree. Mr. realizes that the vampire who took Willie may be different from the creatures they previously encountered, as it was able to bypass their traps. As the trio descends back to the lower regions, Belle Belle experiences cramps, and Mr. carries her in his arms to keep moving. At night, Martin and Mr. keep watch while Belle sleeps. They spot a vampire lurking in the woods and give chase. Failing to apprehend the creature, they return to their camp, only to discover that Belle is missing. At daybreak, the pair track the vampire's trail and discover Belle in an abandoned silo. She is bound and entwined in barbed wire, bleeding from a vampire bite. 𝐬𝐵, now transformed into a vampire, soon appears and forces Martin's head into a tub that is catching Belle's dripping blood. When Mr. enters the silo, 𝐬𝐵 declares his intention to kill Martin in revenge for his son's death. Mr. attempts to stab 𝐬𝐵, but the vampire overpowers him and uses Mr.'s stakes to pin his hands to the wall. 𝐬𝐵 then reveals that he willingly gave his blood to the vampires when they came for him. Just as 𝐬𝐵 is about to bite Mr., Martin intervenes. Although the attack doesn't affect 𝐬𝐵, it allows Mr. to drive the stake further into the vampire's heart, ultimately killing him. After 𝐬𝐵's death, Martin drives a stake through Belle's heart to prevent her from turning into a vampire. Leaving the silo, the pair continues north, finding an abandoned truck on the road. During a rest stop, they encounter Peggy, who has been fending off vampires alone at her diner. After preparing a meal for them, Peggy tells them she's been living alone since her mother died and hasn't seen another person in a long time. That night, Peggy and Martin stay up to fend off vampires outside the diner. Peggy successfully kills one with an arrow, but hesitates to kill another because she knew him from high school before he became a vampire. Martin goes outside and kills the creature with a stake. Mr. observes from a corner, realizing they can handle themselves. In the morning, Martin searches for Mr., but finds only his skull pendant on the truck's side mirror, indicating Mr. has left. Later that day, Peggy and Martin load their belongings into the truck and head towards New Eden. The movie comes to an end as they reach the border and smile at each other, hopeful that they have finally found a safe place. Did this story spook you out? Let us know in the comments below. For more horror movie recaps, subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next one. Fear awaits you.